Hi, this is Spencer Colgan from Spencer Colgan is Wallpaper. Today, we're not hanging just one wall, not just two walls, but we're hanging 3 accent walls in one day. And we're doing it with the finest of finest products, which is a York wall covering. York is a fine residential wall covering that has its peculiarities, which I'll discuss while I'm doing it, if they come up during the installation. We're hanging all of this wallpaper in 3 separate rooms on walls that have a mild texture. Can you just bring the camera up against the wall so they see that? So let me just tell you right off the bat, when you're hanging dark colors on texture, you can hang them on light texture without detriment to the wall covering. A wall covering like York is very forgiving to imperfections or texture underneath. Why do dark wall coverings come with a little warning when you're hanging it on texture? Let me bring it up close. When you're hanging a dark wall covering, there's a lot of pigment in the wallpaper, right? So when you're smoothing it out over texture, these highs, as you're smoothing it out, tend to produce the greatest friction against the wallpaper and puts the wallpaper at risk of giving up the color where there are bumps. So the trick is, 1, to know that before you start hanging it, 2, to have a quality wall covering, and 3, don't rub too hard to get the air out. Okay, we're gonna get started, I think, on the light one, because I like this the best. Come on, let's do it. When you're hanging an accent wall, the first thing you want to find out is how wide is your wall and where is the center point. When you find out where is the center point, you then have to determine if your wallpaper will fall on each side of the center, or if you're going to hang your wallpaper with the middle of the roll on the middle of the wall. And what determines that? Well, if this is my center point, right here, it may be better if I start hanging my paper on the left side of the line. Because at the end, I come up with a sheet of wallpaper that doesn't cause the eye to look at it strangely. That's a good amount of wallpaper on the end. And it's something that a full sheet would cover. But let's say you worked it out, and then when you got to the end of the wall, you had this much left. Well, you would prefer to have a little more wallpaper, right? Or let's say if you worked it out and you had this much left. With all wallpaper, especially grass cloth, you're going to want the measurement that allows you the greatest piece on this side of the wall, which would be equal to the sheet that finishes the wall on the right side. You only know when you work it out. So, if the center is here, the center of your roll might work out best if you start hanging here. You just make a pencil mark on the middle of your wall, your roll, and then you hang the sheets accordingly. You see how that works out? I have 11 or 12 inches here. You would choose the option that affords you the greatest piece of wallpaper, especially if the seams are visible. Okay, let's start hanging. So this is our half point, 73¼ inches, this mark here. So 10¼ Here's the middle of my wallpaper. If I do it this way, let's see what I have left at the end. Ooh, we don't like that. So if I put the middle of my roll on my middle line, I come up with 2 inches. You know how hard it is to hang a 2-inch strip of paper? That's why we do this. Now, if I do this, here's my middle line, and I go like this. Haha. I got all that wallpaper at the end. That's how we're gonna hang it. Do you prime your walls before wallpaper, or do you not? Let me tell you what many professionals say. Now, you know we always prime our walls on this channel. I don't need the callbacks. Or when they remove the wallpaper, when the little girl becomes a big girl and they take it down 5 years later, and I'm still doing business in the area and they say, I couldn't get your wallpaper down. I don't want a callback. So if you're the do-it-yourselfer and you want to know if you absolutely have to prime your walls, here's a little test. One of the ways is to wet your wall with water. If the water seeps into the wall, you're very porous. You have to prime your walls, because when you remove it, I guarantee you're going to take this paint off with it. This is builder grade paint. It's very susceptible to flakiness, and it's a weakly constituted paint. Not a lot of polymers in this paint, just color, a little polymer, a lot of water. Cheap stuff. Well, let me show you a telltale sign of whether or not you must size your walls. Sizing puts a skin between your wall and your paste. You take a knife, you make an X. That's a vulnerable piece of the wall now. And if your paint is weak, you'll know if you put a piece of tape over it, if it comes up, you have to take care to make sure this paint stays down. If I had cheap paint on my walls, I would oil-based prime them, and then I would size them with wallpaper sizing. Let's see. And I would do this test in 3 different parts: high, middle, and low. Okay? We want to see, we're simulating wallpaper on the wall. We're simulating pulling off the wallpaper when we take this tape off. And you'll know the results when you see what this tape does to the paint. You better size these walls. Okay? We're lucky that's all it did. So we know we have to size them. So at my channel, we always size. But you're the do-it-yourselfer. If you wanted to get away without sizing, that's what you're looking at if you don't size. Let's not cut the paint, because we purposely made the paint a little more vulnerable by doing that. But let's see how it does on its own. I'm simulating smoothing my wallpaper, right? I'm really getting the tape onto this surface, into the nooks and crannies. Okay, that's my wallpaper. Now let's see how it does. Bring them in close. That's without cutting the paint. Remember, I said I would do it in 3 places. Do you want to hang your wallpaper on walls with poorly constituted paint? It's a problem. And let's just take a look at today's industry standards. Nothing about wallpaper. Look at the standards We're in a $500,000 house. I think that's a little above average of the average American home, right? Not too expensive, 500 grand. If the fellow paid 350 grand for it, it's now worth 500. This is what he's getting. Here's the drywall. Here's the PVA primer that they put on over it. You can see the texture and a coat of paint. And it comes right off. It's garbage. Looks nice, it's garbage. If that's your wall, you heard it here first, okay? I'm not being arrogant, I'm just telling you, you gotta size your walls. Some people say, oh, how come your price is higher than the other guy? I have another guy who's gonna do it for 25% less than you. Okay, I don't even argue with those people. I say, okay, that's it. My answer is two words, okay. This is what you get when you hire the guy who's 25% less. A friend of mine from Ireland has a joke. He says that, and it's a well-known joke about the quality of craftsmanship. When somebody says, can you do it a little cheaper? So they have an image of the Mona Lisa here. And then the next image is of the Mona Lisa done for a cheaper price. So you have the beautiful Mona Lisa and you have a stick figure with hair on it over here. That's what you get for the low price. Okay, let's start sizing these walls and get right to it. So if you want to prime your walls properly, if you want a really good sealer on these really dry walls, one that I'll recommend is Clear Shields, S-H-I-E-L-D-Z from Zinsser, or I recommend Guards, G-A-R-D-Z, same company. Excellent product. That's a universal one. You can't fail. Shields is the go-to. Shields Clear is the go-to for many, many wallpaper contractors. Guards is also a very highly esteemed product in the industry. Either one will do the trick. Or Roman 999, okay? Or, I have suggested on my channel, if you want to spare that expense, you can make your own solution that does the same thing as Guards, okay? I don't want to get sued by Guards saying it's the same thing, but it is the same effect, because I can testify to that, and that is you get yourself Weld Bond, W-E-L-D, Weld Bond. I got mine on Amazon, and you mix a portion of 3-to-1 between water and the glue. Okay, that's a mixture of 1 part Weld Bond, 3 parts water, and you will get this effect. It's glazed now. This is a membrane between your wall and your wallpaper, and you're not going to get that. You want to shave off the edges. You don't want this interfering with your seams. So with this product, pre-pasted is a very popular product these days. It says on the product that if you put paste on it, you will void the warranty. So I've committed that sin before. But if you're the do-it-yourselfer and you want to do it according to all of the correct ways, you spray down your product. If you want to expedite it, simply get a garden sprayer and just pull that thing all across the sheet of paper. Now, just take a look at how much water I'm putting on. Don't be stingy with the water. You don't want to do that. By the time this soaks in, you can barely see shiny on this side. The vulnerable areas are the edges. A lot of people forget to do them. So feel the backing. Make sure that it's all wet. I'm activating paste that's on the back of this. So here's the thing. Here's the most important trick. Okay? Booking. 3 to 5 minutes. With pre-pasted, I'm not a fan of pre-pasted. I feel like it's an inferior product. I'll tell you why. If you paste it too long, the backing comes off of it. It's inferior, in my opinion. I don't want backing that separates from the wallpaper. What I mean by that is it comes off quickly. There's no forgiveness. But if you don't book this long enough, this is booking. Putting the wet sides together like a book. 3 to 5 minutes, closer to 5. You want this is expanding now. If you put this on your wall without booking this sufficiently, this is minimally $100 a roll. You're gonna throw out a lot of money. But Schumacher absorbs the paste and almost like brings it in toward the paper like a sponge. So when your backing doesn't slide like this. See this? Can you bring them close to this? You're never gonna get that on a Schumacher, okay? It pulls the paste in and it's like rubbing an eraser on a white sheet of paper. Very hard. You gotta use water to expedite the process, okay? But here's the thing. He didn't let it expand. He didn't realize that you needed to book the material. I let Schumachers generally 7 minutes. Let it book, and here's what I do. I spray the whole sheet down. Because after the water absorbs into the product, you can always get excess water out of your wallpaper after you install it. You just put some plastic down but if you ever see a guy putting tint on a window, on a vehicle, he uses lots of water and soap, right? By the way, they use Johnson's baby oil. If you ever wanted to do that yourself, the trick is, I went to a detailing place, I said, what do you guys use? Water and Johnson's baby oil. That's what's in that stuff. And that's how they do it. We're doing the same thing. We're putting water and we're using that to get our wallpaper on the walls, okay? Now look, you see this buckle here? This paper is expanding. So it went from this size to this on the table. And you see the expansion movement? You see these vertical buckles? Can they see that in the camera? See this one? This one? That wasn't there when I started. These are expansion buckles. If you don't let it book sufficiently, you try to put this on the wall, it's happened to me. You get these vertical lines. Your edges dry on the wall. They're stuck. And in the middle, it pulls off of the wall because it's moving. And now you get this. Good luck trying to fix that. If you have to fix it, here's what I would do if I were you. Penetrate it in a few areas, inject some glue in there, some water in there, and float it out. If that doesn't work, pull the sheet down. Okay, so now as you can see, look what I'm doing now. I'm rolling the paper, I'm making it tight. I'm forcing still further that water into the fibers of that backing. And just for good luck, I'm wetting the edges. I've had my trouble with wallpaper. We have a love-hate relationship. And I'm not letting my paper dry. You want to pull the bottom out first, so you're not struggling with it. You want to land the paper generally in the area where it's going to go. I'm going to flap the top so that I don't get paste on the ceiling. I flap it over, clean side against the ceiling. Okay. It's generally where it's going to go. Okay, now, I was in a Walmart recently, and lady comes up to me, she says, "Oh my goodness, you are not the wallpaper hanger. Are you? So I looked around and I said, now I don't lie, but I didn't want to tell her yes. She was a truck driver and she was really big. I said, wallpaper? Oh my gosh, you are Spencer the wallpaper hanger. Pleased to meet you. So at that point I figured, let me admit it. I said, yes. Very nice lady. Turns out she belongs to the American Association of Wallpaper Hanger Lovers. So it's just a group of people who love wallpaper, but they actually have an affection for wallpaper hangers. So I didn't know the organization existed until I met her. So she's getting help for it. Nice lady though. Very nice lady. So what did I do? I leveled the wallpaper. I made it plumb with my level. I give the Brits a lot of credit. Not only the Brits, a lot of folks in the UK, they use plumb lines. I don't trust it. I don't trust it. I don't trust myself to use it properly. I have 2 of them, but I won't use them. And I just think it takes more time. So now, the reason why I kept you on, and I think I will fast frame all of the rest of the frames on this wall, is to simply show you how to put up the first sheet. We went to the left of the line. And also, I want you to realize that you can hang this wallpaper over texture. A good quality wall covering can go right over texture. I'll see you on the next frame. Let me take you up close. When you're hanging wallpaper on a textured surface, see the texture, right? The seams. My soft hand, you can put a lot of undue amount of pressure on and friction on your seams. So a lot of hand work here, okay? Look, push it together and then lock this down, lock it down. Meanwhile, make sure this stays. Now, look at this. I push it toward the seam, okay? Okay, you see how I should have, you see how that seam is black? Watch this, nice and easy, watch. See that? We're just bringing the seams gently together. All these lines, they're gonna be out of it. That's just wet paste. When that evaporates, if you did a good job wetting it, here's the key with this. Gotta have a lot of material, a lot of moisture underneath, okay? Why? It's gonna fill those crevices. Ultimately, you're not gonna fill every single one of them. You will get a little air under this, okay? Be aware. My preference is not to hang wallpaper over texture, but it's a prudential judgment on the part of the consumer to avoid the expenditure of money on preparing the walls to make them smooth. They say, you know what, just put it up, put it over the texture. It's not a dramatic texture, just hang it. So, if you're hanging wallpaper for 10 years or more, you can go to the University of Ambidextrous in order that they teach you how to use both of your hands and use the other part of your brain in order that you are able to use your right hand as well as your left if you're a lefty, and vice versa. And so I am a graduate of the University of Ambidextrous, and I can use both hands, one of which holds my GoPro and the other hanging paper. and it's a very nice thing. I graduated with a 4.0, and I was proficient in all things except firearm with my right hand, which is fine. I don't plan on having a need for that anyway. But other than that, now, why do we get bubbles after we get rid of them? Why are we going to get bubbles here after we get rid of these? Well, we have water underneath the product, and it's emitting the air that comes out of the paste. A scientist on my channel corrected me. I said the oxygen is escaping. He said, actually, Spencer, it's not oxygen, blah, blah, blah. I have to admit, I did not like science. I didn't like it. All I know is H2O has oxygen. And there's H2O in the water that I sprayed on this, as you saw. Now, don't judge this product up against the texture. Let me move far away so that you can get a good look at it. Now you can see it's starting to look beautiful, right? I should tell the folks at home watching that one of the benefits to pre-pasted wallpaper is the time you're going to save. Most of you who watch my channel do not have a pasting machine. They're expensive contraptions through which you pull your wallpaper and it pastes the paper for you. Well, you don't have the money for that, nor the need for it, right? So you paste it with a brush or a roller, and you spend lots of time. With pre-pasted, I would say it takes half the time. Get yourself pre-pasted. I'm not a fan of it because I like the heaviness of the paste on the back of the wallpaper. I like to determine how much paste is on the paper. But in this case, the paper determines it. So if you have experienced hands, all is good. But there's a tendency with the do-it-yourselfer of not putting enough paste on it by putting too little water on it. So you might get peeling seams. So wet it down good. Okay? So you save a lot of time. I would say it takes half the time because you eliminate all of that brushing the paste on. I hired a guy a few years ago. He went to the wallpaper school. He was the cockiest wallpaper hanger I ever met. He knew everything. He couldn't show up to work before 11 o'clock in the morning, but he knew everything, except how to get to work on time. By the way, my ebook is out. You might have seen it already on my channel, The Life of a Wallpaper Hanger. And in it, I chronicle my life. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, going to St. Francis Xavier on President Street between 6 and 7. Now, it's no longer, they just made it, I think, a public school. But I speak about my dream of becoming a wallpaper hanger in that book. And I tell you how it became possible. It's a very interesting account of my life. And I'm certain that most of you are going to want to read it, so I'm going to offer it at a discounted price. For $19 a book. Make it 18. For those of you who want to watch, read my book. Now, please bring them in. Okay, so here's the thing. We meet here. We're good here. We're good here. Follow me. What happens? Take two hands like you're doing CPR. This is how we do CPR on wallpaper. Now this is a quality wallpaper. You're not going to tear it. I've torn wallpaper before. Junk. You need to stretch this a bit. Can you bring them here? Oh, I'm lying. Okay, we're good. I stretched it already. Whenever you have to just gently stretch wallpaper, CPR. 2 hands, nice and gentle, okay? Just like that. Gentle with your hands. Done. I find that if you kiss the wallpaper, I don't know if this is true, but it seems to behave differently. I know that works if you're married, but not if you're married to your wallpaper work. That can hurt your marriage, just so you know. I don't really have tremors, but I know people who do. When I have a hazy IPA, different story. Anybody ever watch The Honeymooners? Art Carney used to. It was the stupidest thing, but okay, I'm gonna do something on camera that I don't really want to do, but I don't have my snap off with me. I know. Please spare me. This is not the way to do it. I was a cop in New York. And all of the know-it-alls, when you're brand new, you got to keep your mouth shut in any job. But this is what you heard. There's the book way to do it, and then there's the right way to do it. Granted, this is not the right way to handle your blades, but we do collect them when I don't have my snap off with me. And we make sure, see, I'm the only one who handles the scrap. Never get cut, because we got blades in there. Okay. Now, one last thing on textured wallpaper with seams. Please come close. Your hand is a tool. It's very soft. And so the smoother is like a bookend, you know, a hardcover book. Your seams need to be massaged. And if you really want to do it right, just keep them on the camera, on the wallpaper. And if I could just find my water bottle, I'd be very happy. Anybody see it? Look at my seam mending. Watch this. You wet it, right? Watch this. You see the line here? Can you see that on the camera? They can see it? Watch this. What am I doing here? I'm pushing the seam into the crevices with my soft flesh. Okay? Now, just let's go down here. You see, what I'm doing is I'm making the seam butt right up against the seam. And I'm reducing the effects of these hills that's impeding the joining of the edges of the wallpaper. So I'm giving it the greatest opportunity to join by forcing it in between those crevices. What do you think? Okay. And if you're the homeowner who's hanging paper over texture, you have to accept the results, okay? But you should doctor up your seams when you're doing texture before you leave the seam, because it's going to start drying. Remember, this is pre-pasted. Dries quick, okay? You do want to do this quickly, okay? It's your last attempt to make the seams invisible, okay? And so I slightly overlap them. I purse them. You know when you put your lips, you push your lips out? That means you're not only joining your seams, you're pushing them together and they go a little up, okay? But then you take your wet thumb and you knock it down, okay? How's that? How's that? Wet it, reduce the friction, and folks, don't worry about this. See this? Can they see that in the camera? It's a paste bubble. Don't mess with them. Okay? Let them come out. One of the tricks of the trade is this. If you have a lot of paste bubbles, go to the store, get your customer a cheap bottle of wine, have him consume the wine before he checks out your wallpaper job, but make sure you got paid first, and then you'll never hear anything about these paste bubbles. Trust me when I tell you. Okay, so there we go. We are moving right along. My camera person, and we won't mention gender because there's no reason to. She's doing a fine job holding the camera, working it out as I clean my paper now. Now when you're doing your paper, if you want to reduce the stress on your upper body, you got to move. It looks like I'm dancing, but I'm not. I'm just cleaning the paper, and I'm just kind of, it's actually, when you go to the wallpaper school, it's called the wallpaper trot, and you just move your upper body. But it looks like a dance, but it's called the wallpaper trot, T-R-O-T. If you look it up, I fully explain it, how to do the movement on my YouTube channel. Thank you. Beautiful wall covering. You can see saturation marks. Don't forget we started in the middle, right? It went this way. So you're looking at saturation. If you see dark, you're not going to see that when it's dry. Okay, folks, that's it. You want to just show them one last shot? Okay, wall number 2, we're going to step it up to a black wallpaper. If not black, then certainly a little black with some dark charcoal gray in there. What would you do to the wall behind me if you were hanging this on there? I'll give you a moment. Anything with regard to the color? Did somebody say painted? Well, guess what? We're going to determine on this one, just like the last one, where our seams will fall. And then behind each seam, we're going to put the color black. Why is that? We're dealing with the texture. Customer is adamant about leaving the texture, and got to admit, it didn't look too bad on the last wall, did it? But since the seams are at best slightly compromised when hanging a wall covering over texture, we as wallpaper hangers are perfectionists. And so we're not in the business of telling customers no. We're in the business of telling customers, okay, but let me just prepare your walls in a special way in order to make this look its best. And so we anticipate that on some textures, the seam will sometimes have a hairline between one end of one sheet and the other end of the other sheet, leaving you a hairline fracture. It's sometimes inevitable with some of the parts of the texture. You can see that the texture differs in the level of intensity as you go up. You can see some bumps are larger than others. So if your seam should happen to fall on one of those larger bumps, which is very difficult for us to determine, to avoid, I should say. Because of that, it will leave a hairline in between the two sheets of wallpaper, giving us a white line. And so we want to paint where the seams are to counter that possibility, to eliminate it altogether. Let's get started with that. Before we prepare the wall with guards, because this is a porous paint underneath, builder grade flat paint, we're going to put the black paint first, then guards, then hang our paper. Okay, so the tape represents the middle of our wall. The center of that tape is the center point of the wall. You can see the mark. So, are we going to hang the center of the roll in the center of the wall? Let's see. We can actually do that. Center. We have to make sure what we got to do is make sure that, yeah, we're good. That's ideal. Beautiful. So how many sheets are we going to have on this wall? We have 1, 2, 3, then obviously 4, 5. Okay. Now we're going to set up where our seams are and then paint the lines behind the seams. I'll show you what I'm talking about. That's my seams, and they are now black behind the wallpaper. We'll let this dry, hit it with guards, get that wallpaper up. What do you think? This is black chalk paint. Okay, our walls are now sized. And the seams are painted. Let's start hanging it. do I.
Nice.
What I don't like about the wallpaper, and it's a logistical problem, it's not an aesthetic issue, is that it's shiny. Now the first one we hung was a matte finish. So can you come in here so I don't feel like I'm in a cage? Thank you. So it's shiny, and so we're hanging it over texture. The texture will be accentuated by shiny bumps. Okay, but listen, when you choose your wallpaper, if you are a do-it-yourselfer and you're at home watching this, learn from this. Understand that if you're looking to hang wallpaper and you're not specifically looking for a shiny finish, don't get it. Very few walls are perfect. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, you may not have the patience or the time to make your wall flat. In that case, get a matte finish. You'll never see it, okay? And you'll love your work. You'll be very proud of your work. This is a quality wallpaper. What I'm doing right now would take the color off of a poor quality wallpaper. When you rub a smoother over a dark surface and you have texture under it, the texture highs cause friction while you're rubbing the smoother. And that friction pulls the color right off. I'll show you on a piece of scrap. This is so good I can't even tear this. I can't even tear it. I try to tear it. Cheap wallpaper would tear. Check it out. Okay. Just let that sit there. Okay.
Looks like a good wallpaper for a boys' room, actually.
Yeah, I think this is the customer's son's room.
Kind of
No.
like tire tracks.
Let me exaggerate. Please come in close. Watch this. Okay, come in close. You see all these scuff marks on the wallpaper? Can they see that through the camera?
Yeah, lots of them.
Okay, so, we're not going to stress this wallpaper like that, but this is a high quality wallpaper. So those highs on the texture are scuffing the wallpaper. Okay, you don't want to do that, but you could do it if you're not careful. So go easy, nice and easy like that. That's enough. Okay? So you don't want to do that. The edges of this wallpaper, to make this edge and this edge meet perfectly over texture, it's not going to do it just to run you smoother. You then have to get in the nooks and crannies and push it in, all of those little ins and outs. But when you do it, it looks great. So, any questions?
Can't think of any.
Has any of you ever been at a meeting at work? You're looking to get out of there. The meeting means nothing. The boss says, does anybody have anything to say? There's always the one guy. He never gets promoted. Bill? Yes, Bill. And the boss has a smile on his face. And he asked something that was already answered in the meeting. Well, Bill, that's a great question. As we said earlier, In 2000, I was a police lieutenant in the intelligence division. I really don't think I can say where because they get upset about that. A friend of mine mentioned an agency he used to work for up in New York. It happened to be the NYPD that this fellow worked at. The lawyers from the department sent him a letter that he couldn't use the name of the police department. Anyway, let's just say I was a police lieutenant in New York City. There's many agencies up there. Anyway, I was in the intelligence division. Boy, you want to talk about egos. Woo! A lot of important people sitting at those meetings. I knew I had nothing to contribute. I was a sergeant. I was just before lieutenant. And I didn't have anything to say because I didn't have anything to contribute, you know? But there was always somebody. Those were the days. Now I gotta really work for a living, which I enjoy. La dee 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 dee. I do enjoy it. Just want to make sure.
That's a perfect length.
I don't know about that. Let me just make sure this is moving up. Coming close? Do you want me to sponge? Thank you. Aye, aye, Captain Video! Har, 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 har. Okay. If you hang this wallpaper, and I will put the link below in the description, it's not easy. You might make a mistake by joining. Each rectangle has a black half and a gray half. You may attach the black part to the black, but meanwhile, it's very hard to see, but one side of this rectangle is black, the other side is gray. On the next one, the first part is gray and the other side is black. Very easy to connect the wrong parts. You might have 4 or 5 sheets hung, and then you realize, hey, you're doing it wrong. So that is the only thing I would say to watch out for this wallpaper. It's a pain, wasn't fun hanging, but I'm glad it's over. That's the fun part about it. It's almost over. Just show them the job, please. You can show them the whole thing, please. Just go over the details. I would just bring them up close. Show them what they're dealing with if they want to try to do this yourself. I wouldn't recommend this particular product to spouses who aren't getting along. This could end your marriage, this one. But if you're getting along and you want to do penance, I suggest that you try to hang this paper together. And then it's a great penance, believe me. Especially if you share the suffering together, you know? But if you're really used to getting along and everything's going well, get somebody else to do this. Because it could interfere. Not easy. Okay. I'm going to hang the last sheet and be done with this. Alrighty. I'll see you on the next frame. Kill me on it. Okay. I'm still nursing it. Wow, I just got the 3D effect of it. Okay. So if you see any paste bubbles, I'm 99% done here. I keep getting the 3D effect when I look at it. I don't know if you are. But what do you think? Do you like this? This is really a smart wall covering. It's smart looking, it's a little dark, but it's really nice. Let me take you up close. Our third wall covering is another York. And it's another pre-pasted product, which you see behind me. Okay? And I'll take you into the other room where I just finished the other one. I wanted it to dry because the product is still wet in the other room. But here's our first sheet. And it's a very nice pattern. It's chevrons. But the last one was quite a tricky pattern. Let me show you how it looks. So here's the first one we did. Look at how beautiful it looks, right? After it's all dry. Look at that. Look at that beauty. I mean, this is very gratifying to be the person who installed this, you know? This is fine work and it's also fine quality. This was the best product of all the three, right here. Okay, now let me take you to the second one, which I just finished. This is my helper who's been helping for the last, I don't know, 8 hours. How you doing? Thank you. You my camera woman?
Yes.
Fans down near the table. That's it, baby. You might want to put it right over here, baby, pointing this way.
Oh, okay. Is that where your shoes are?
Yes, mommy. Please get that switch plate cover and prepare to put it on there.
Okay. Where the heck is the
So I know, right? Switch is on the side. Then we should make it orange or something. I want to show you how I've been getting these seams to join. Now this is a York, Y-O-R-K, but I have to say it's a flimsy wall covering. I'm not a fan of it. It's flimsy, it's very thin, and it's not cheap paper. But if you want to keep the color on here and not remove it, get yourself a microfiber cloth and don't use a smoother, and bring your seams together like this. It's the only way to do it. See that? Otherwise, you're going to take the color off. And that's not a compliment to York. Trust me when I tell you. So, as wallpaper hangers, we adjust. And so we make up for the deficiencies in the product. And the deficiency is this. You have to wet the backing because it's pre-pasted. You can't put your own paste on it because you avoid the warranty. The front of it winds up getting wet and slippery. And the only traction you're going to be able to get is like this, with a microfiber cloth. And that's how we're closing our seam. See that seam closing? See that? Oh, a lot of work. Let me show you again. Okay. So here's our seam. Okay, close her up. See the seam open there? All right, let's close it up. Then you got to feel to see that you didn't overlap it, right? Oh, I'll tell you, it's giving me a workout, and I'm not happy about it. But I share it with you because I don't want you having the trouble with this stuff. And by the way, you want to close this in within 15 minutes after putting this on the wall. You know why? You won't be able to move it. Folks, I'm telling you, it's not easy to do. So, learn from my hardship. I share this with you because I just came up with this technique just as I'm doing this. I don't want to remove the color, so use yourself a cloth. You see how the seam joins together? That's all. Just make it work for you. And I'm putting all my upper body weight on this thing. Okay, how do we do? How did we do? Not easy. Okay, one more sheet and we're done.
Did you tell them about your YouTube?
Oh, I think so.